up, guys? This is Richtastic, aka Megatron6783 over on the PSN, coming at you with another Bloodborne video. This time it's going to be a little different. Normally I just show you the run back from the shortcut to the boss most of the time because I end up dying and never just beating the boss on the first go. But the fault is my own. But this time we're actually in a special area. This is the Pthumerian Labyrinth, which is a chalice dungeon. Now, we've heard a lot about these chalice dungeons and how they're procedurally generated and whatnot, but there's a little bit more to it. So, in order to access this area, first you have to beat the blood-starved beast. Upon beating him, you will be given the Pthumerian chalice. And it took me a while to figure out what I was supposed to do with it, but I'm going to do my best to explain it because I don't have the actual video of that. But basically, you have your... that was just an epic fail. You would think that I would be able to avoid those things. But, so what you would have to do, again, getting back on point, is there are the gravestones to the right of the doll that transport you to the different PvE zones in the game. But then there are a group of gravestones to the left of her, or actually to the left of the vendor, and they are unmarked, but therefore they do tell you that they're for chalices. So long as you have the proper amount of blood echo and the proper material for said chalice dungeon, which in this case it's the Pthumerian Labyrinth, you will be able to access this dungeon. Now, this is not the procedurally generated dungeon. This is the actual dungeon as is. Your goal is to progress through the dungeon, and this particular dungeon has 3 layers to it. It tells you at the very beginning when you put the chalice down how many layers and how deep the dungeon is. But this particular one, because it's the very first one, is pretty easy, and it's only 3 layers. But at the end of each layer, there is a boss fight. There is also a ton of loot to get. Now, I think the promise or the idea is that this is a good place to loot for items that are in the PvE areas of the game, like blood vials and bullets and so on and so forth. But you're also looking for specific chalice items that can only, I believe, can only be found in some cases in the chalice dungeons themselves, because in order to unlock the next chalice, you will need materials that you farmed from the previous chalice. So that's the goal. So you really want to be thorough in your exploration of the dungeon. There are going to be dungeons that have a lot of branching paths. Some of them end up looping around on themselves. So you really want to, if you see a door, go through it, explore it, and make sure you loot as much as you can, because you're looking for specific chalice items, as well as other loot, possibly weapons and so on and so forth. They're definitely items, you know, we get Molotov cocktails and all this stuff. So it's really worth taking a look at these things. Now, as far as the procedurally generated or randomly generated parts of these dungeons, well, what happens is, after you beat a particular chalice, you will receive what is called the root version of that chalice. And by doing and placing a root chalice, you are then allowed to go into the dungeon again, and everything is randomly generated. So the rooms will be different, the enemy placement will be different, the bosses will be randomized, and that is really, really cool. And I believe the loot also resets each time you do it. I think it resets every time you do it, which is the reason you'd want to run the root chalices, because sometimes you need certain items in order to unlock the other chalices, and the best place to get them would be to do the root chalices. I'm pretty sure I've managed to do that and get items that I needed. So keep that in mind. But that's where the randomly generated part of it comes, when you get the root version of the chalice. So right now, as you can see, I'm pretty much just slaughtering everything. I'm pretty sure, actually, I'm over-leveled for this. Because, I mean, when you fight the dark not the dark beast, the blood-starved beast, you are pretty, you're probably in around level 25, 20 to 25, maybe 30 if you really grinded it out. But you're somewhere in there, and I'm pretty sure I'm beyond that because I did not go into this dungeon until way later. Quick note about the Bell Maiden that you just saw me kill before. You see her a lot in these dungeons, and you will see her in the PvE zones as well. When she rings her bell, you want to hunt her down and kill her as quickly as possible because she will spawn enemies that will continually respawn until you kill her. Those were those red glowing enemies that you saw before. Another cool mechanic with these dungeons is there's like these traps. It's very like Sen's Fortress in a way. There are these traps. There are these braziers here, or is it braziers? Braziers. I always say that wrong. Brazier is a bra. Braziers that create this fog, and you can't see what's behind that fog. And there are times where I'll enter a room and I see those things there, and I'm like, okay, and I'm ultra cautious because I can't see what's beyond that fog. And sometimes there's an enemy, like you saw behind it, throwing poison daggers at me, and sometimes there's absolutely nothing. Sometimes there's loot, so that's cool. There's also your typical, well, you know what? You know, I'm not going to spoil everything for you, but just, you want to go through these dungeons with care. You don't want to just go with reckless abandon because, again, A, you don't know what type of enemies are going to spawn, and B, you don't know what any other goodies are going to be there. But like you could see, like when I was coming up those steps just now, for instance, you couldn't see that guy. You would not know he's there coming up those staircases on the right. Now, this lever is your end game when you're going through a dungeon. This is what you're looking for. You're proceeding through the dungeon not only to get loot, but to get that lever, because at the very beginning of the dungeon there is a door that can only be accessed when you have pulled that lever. And that door effectively is your progression. That is your way to get to the boss fight. That is your way to proceed to the next phase of the dungeon. So you will see there, I'm going to climb one of these ladders. One of these ladders has the door. I'm a little bit turned around. It's the one on the left, fool. There you go. And so you're always going to be looking to open one of these gates that have the blue lights. And these doors will always, at least as many dungeons as I've done so far, will lead to a boss fight. So here we go. First boss of the first dungeon. And we have... oh, an undead giant. Now, this is a fairly straightforward fight. I'm not going to get into much commentary. Dodges attacks, you can strafe around them. You don't even have to lock on. It's probably easier without the lock on. And again, I'm pretty high leveled, so I'm really chewing through them. You know, if you come in here at lower levels, I'm sure he's a bit of a problem. But again, I'm pretty over leveled. There, you see, I get a stagger on him. And we're pretty much chewing through them, so it's pretty straightforward. But that's an introduction to the Pthumerian chalices. I'm going to bring you the other boss battles of this particular labyrinth. And yeah, that's it. So if you like what you see, like the video, comment, subscribe, and I will see you hunters in the next one. Happy hunting.